if you want to scale your company, give people the ability to have ownership. If they have ownership, they will treat it differently. If they don't have ownership, they'll treat it like it's nothing, or they won't give it 100%. Today's conversation is all about how to build a company that people do not want to leave. You know, one of the most expensive parts of scaling a company is the retention of people. Companies invest so much money into replacing people, and they would be so much more profitable if they didn't lose the people that they recruited from the get-go. And so what I want to do is I want to go over 5 things that make up for a company that people don't want to leave. 5 things that makes people say, you know what, I want to be a part of this company. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stick and stay and never go away. There's 5 things that are required in order for you to build a sticky business, a sticky environment, and a sticky company. And so I want to go over what those things are with you guys here today. And so the first one is results. A company that gets results, a company that succeeds, a company that's winning, a company that has a track record of winning and success. This is everything. Nobody wants to be a part of a company where nobody's winning. Nobody wants to be a part of a losing team. Nobody wants to be a part of a losing environment. People want to be a part of a company where there are results, there are proof of results, and there's a track record for results. Because if you don't have the results I want, how in the world are you going to teach me how to get to what I want and teach me how to get the income that I want, or build the business that I want, or generate the life that I want? If you can't show me how to do it, how in the world am I going to get there? And so people want to be a part of a company where there are results. So you got to ask yourself, are people getting results right now in my business? And if the answer to that question is no, you got to ask yourself, am I getting results? Because I can't pour from an empty cup. I can't give what I do not got. I have to make sure that I'm the example of it. And so you got to say, you know what? I'm going to be an example of results. I'm going to be the standard. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to begin to teach it. And then I'm going to begin to teach others to teach it. But you can't scale if you haven't learned it yourself. So you have to make the commitment. You go get results. So that way that can transcend into your business, into your organization. You want to build an environment where when people come into it, they say, wow, everybody's winning here. So if everybody's winning, I can win too. Wow, everyone's succeeding here. So if everyone's succeeding, I can succeed too. An environment where there's a lack of results, people start to doubt whether or not they can win. Because they look around, they're like, well, nobody's winning here. So I definitely don't have a shot to win. Nobody's making money here, so I definitely don't have a shot to make money. Nobody is thriving here. Then what chance do I have to thrive? Most will not think to themselves, I want to help turn around this organization. They want to come into one that's already pre-built. It's your ability to show results that's going to lead to retention and growth. And I know what some of you might be thinking, Matt, I'm trying to scale my company right now, and it's just me. Then you have to celebrate the results going on in the industry. Well, Matt, I don't have a lot of results going on in my team right now. You got to look for every ounce of winning. Every ounce. I don't care what it is. If somebody sets an appointment, that's a win. Huge shout out. They're thriving right now. They're setting appointments. This person's developing. This person accomplished this. This person passed their exam. This person did X, Y, and Z. You have to find anything and everything that you can celebrate publicly. So that way, when new people come into the business, they think, wow, everyone's winning here. There's a whole bunch of winning going on. And you might be recognizing the most micro parts of the business. But those micro parts lead to a flame, and that leads to a fire, that leads to something that you can't put out even if you wanted to. So as a leader, it's your ability to cultivate an environment of results where people are winning, where they feel like they are a part of a winning team. People need to feel like they can win if they're working with you. So that's number 1. Number 2, Crusade. Crusade, crusade, crusade. People want to be a part of an environment where they feel like they're making a difference. They want to be a part of an environment where they feel like they're contributing. It's crazy. There was a Forbes article that came out not too long ago, and it talks about how 98% of people feel like they lack purpose in their life, and 98% of people feel like they lack fulfillment. Well, fulfillment does not come from what you do for yourself. Fulfillment comes from what you're able to do for other people. So when you are constantly talking about the crusade, when you are constantly talking about the difference that you're making in the lives of other people, when you have client testimonies, when you have agent testimonies, when you are able to show and demonstrate lives becoming better because of your company, your team, your environment, people want to be a part of that. People want to feel like they're contributing and making a difference. And the moment they no longer do, they're going to start looking fulfillment in other places. So the second thing that you have to make sure that you build into your business is the crusade. There should never be a meeting that you do where you're not talking about helping people, where you're not talking about the people that you've already helped, where you're not telling success stories of either your agents and or your clients. You have to tell those crusade stories. Number 3, culture. And everything that I've talked about so far is what helps create a culture. But culture is the glue. Culture comes from trust. Culture comes from brotherhood and sisterhood. For me, coming up in business, I remember there was a moment in my career where we were starting all over. And it was a devastating moment. It was a hard moment. And we went from, 100 agents in our business to overnight having 3. And I remember thinking to myself, like, do I even want to do this anymore? Do I want to try to build this again? And it wasn't that I did anything necessarily wrong. I got taken advantage of just being young in business. But I remember being in those moments thinking, wow, I'm starting all over. And I remember paying to be a part of this course. And one of the things that it said in the course is that the best part about losing it all is that you get to rebuild everything in your vision. And what I realized is that the team that I built before was in the vision of someone else, and my vision and that vision did not align. And so it gave me the thought process of, okay, what vision do I have? What do I want to build? What type of environment do I want to have? What type of team do I want to create? And for me, it was all about brotherhood. It was all about sisterhood. It was all about taking care of each other. It was always about making sure that the person next to you know that they can trust you. It was about loyalty. It was about doing the right thing. It was a culture where everybody had each other's backs. I wanted to rebuild the locker rooms that I grew up in, because the greatest teams that I ever played for, everybody trusted each other. Everybody had each other's back. Everybody went above and beyond for one another. Everybody called each other out when they were doing something they should not have been doing. Everybody was there for one another. And so for me, when I was getting clear on what type of environment and culture that I wanted to create a brotherhood. And so everything that we did went towards creating that brotherhood. And that's how we created a sticky environment. So you have to realize that people get recruited to an opportunity, but they stay because of the culture and leadership. Let me say that one more time. People get recruited to an opportunity, but they stay because of culture and leadership. So where there is no culture, there is no leader. And where there is no leader, there is no culture. You need those two things working together in order to build an incredible environment. So I know what you might be thinking, well, Matt, how do I build an incredible culture? Like everything that you're saying kind of shapes into it. Well, part of building an incredible culture is just being what you want to build. It's being what you want to build. If you stand for something and you talk about it, well, then guess what? People who hear it and agree stay. People who disagree leave. So when you talk about integrity, people who are integrity driven stay. People who lack integrity leave. When you talk about taking care of your brother or your sister and doing the right thing, and or you talk about being a servant leader, or you talk about operating with high levels of excellence, or you talk about showing up early and leaving late, people who agree stay. People who disagree leave. So the best way to create a culture is be the standard of what you want your culture to be through your example, through the way you communicate, through the way you treat people, through what you stand for, and through the way you show up each and every single day. That is how you build culture. You become the example of it. And then what happens is it transcends into your organization and it transcends into your business. So number 3, if you want to build a sticky company that people do not want to leave, number 3 is culture. And it's so important that you dial this in. Number 4, recognition. You want to build a hot environment. You want to build a hot company. It's all about recognition. Can we recognize people for everything they do right? Milestones, promotions. We want to become a recognition machine when it comes to making people feel special. I remember a book that I read coming up in business. It was called Pushing Up People by Art Williams. And one of the things that it said in that book is that every single person has an invisible sign on their forehead that says, make me feel special, make me feel seen. And so when you begin to recognize people for their little efforts, for their medium-sized efforts, for their big efforts, for their results, what you recognize the most, you get more of. So whatever you want more of in your business, you recognize it. You want more appointments to be set? Recognize people who are setting appointments. You want more production? You recognize people that do production. You want more people making money? You recognize people who are making money. You want loyalty? You recognize people who operate with loyalty. You want consistency? You recognize people who are consistent. You want people to show up early and leave late? You recognize people who show up early and leave late. You recognize whatever you want more of, and you make sure that when people do get results, you make them feel seen. There's a quote, men die for ribbons. And it's the reality. People will literally die to be celebrated. They'll die and fight for things if they know that there's going to be recognition on the other side of it. There's so many people that come into your business that are significance driven. They care more about the recognition than the money hitting their bank account. They care more about the recognition than the actual promotion itself. They care more about the recognition than anything outside of that. That's what they care about the most. They went after the milestone simply because they wanted other people to know that they got the milestone. It had nothing to do with the milestone. So if you can create an environment where people get recognized for everything that they do, and not just on the result side of things. I'm talking about culturally. Recognize what you want in your culture. Recognize what you want in your standards. Recognize what you want in performance. Recognize what you want in integrity. Recognize what you want in leadership. Recognize every area of your business. And the more you recognize the positive things, the more positivity will happen in your business and in your company, and the less likely people will be to leave. And last but not least, number 5, if you want to build a company that people do not want to leave, it's going to come down to opportunity and ownership. Do people have the opportunity to grow? Do people have the opportunity to get promoted? Do people have the opportunity to make more than what they're currently making? Do people have the opportunity to get better? Do people have an incredible opportunity? That's important. But it's not just the opportunity to build something great, it's the ownership. It's absolutely everything. Think about it like this. Would you wash a car that you rented? Like, would you wash a rental car? Probably not. Why? There's no ownership in it. You're not going to wash a rental car, right? But if you own a vehicle, like I own my truck and I got it washed yesterday. Do you want to know why? Because I'm driving it on a daily basis. And so people treat things differently when they own it. And people just kind of throw things to the wayside when they don't. And so when people are renting the opportunity because there's no way for them to have ownership in the opportunity, eventually they will leave or they will never give their best. What we wanted to create in our company was an environment that people wanted to be a part of. We wanted to build a company that people can have ownership in, where they can build their own company on our platform. And through this, we've attracted so many incredible people because they're not building my company. They're not building our company. They're building their own company because we've given that ownership away. And that is so important. That is absolutely crucial to the growth of your company. If you want people to treat your company different, give them ownership in it. So that way they treat it as if it's their own, because it is. Let me say it again. If you want to scale your company, give people the ability to have ownership. If they have ownership, they will treat it differently. If they don't have ownership, they'll treat it like it's nothing, or they won't give it 100%. If people know that what they're building, they can pass it on to their kids and they can pass it on to their kids, they're going to show up with different levels of intention, different levels of commitment. They're going to show up differently each and every single day because they know they're not just building an income, they are building a legacy. You want to build a company that nobody wants to leave? Give them ownership and make sure that the opportunity is an absolute no-brainer. And so guys, hopefully you got something out of this. Obviously, I went over the 5 points that makes a company sticky, that leads to retention, that leads to people never leaving. And if you can make sure that these 5 things are built into your company, these 5 things are built into your organization, people are not going to want to leave. You're going to grow, you're going to scale, and you're going to be able to make a massive impact in this world. Guys, if you learned something from today, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, tell somebody about it. Obviously, we put out all this information for free. All we ask is that if you ever learn something, tell somebody. So with that being said, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Let's get it.